been playing music since probably the 70s, and was like, I remember the time when I never thought, I'd be using computers to write all my music now, or at least to be able to compose the music, and you can do it in your bedroom. But back in the early 80s, or late 80s, early 90s, I started going online and started checking out forums. And there was a lot of forums that would offer demos of their software and say, yeah, we came out with a new software program that plays pianos. I'm like, wow, that's cool. So then they would have a demo version of it. So I would download the demos and then check it out and all that. And then they had drum versions for drum sets. And so I would take it out and test it out and then learn how to program it. And then I would send it something back to them. And they would say, wow, this is really cool. You want to write our demos? And I said, well, okay, I'll do the demos. They said, we'll give you all our stuff for free. I'm like, oh, this is awesome. This is what I'm going to do. So I started doing that, and that's how I learned how to do a lot of programming. So I've been programming probably like 20, 30 years on the different programs and stuff like that. And I know it's after a while, I started getting out of hand to see if I wanted, my goal was, all right, I got so much software now. I have 800 gigabytes of software, and it's like I don't know where to place it. I started asking the companies, is there any way I can get paid to do this? They're like, yeah, okay, we can do that. I said, there we go. This is what I want to do. So I actually started making a lot of money doing all this. But what I noticed, for one company, they said, can you start writing MIDI files for our drum programs? And he said, can you write MIDI files for our piano? Because the thing is, I started learning and I started noticing when you program the MIDI parts, you have to start thinking like the way the performer would play. I'm a drummer, so I would think, well, I would put in a MIDI file, and I hear the drum part, and it's like, tss, 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 tss. And I'm thinking, okay, that would be cool if I was a robot, but and a lot of times I play a lot of it is dynamics and feels, and I can play a little bit demonstrate a little bit on the drums, what I'm thinking about. Like I would get a MIDI file, and just be like a regular rock beat. And I'm thinking, well, that sounds kind of cool. But a lot of times when I play, I'd be like, whatever I want to try to put in there, and I'm thinking, well, a lot of times when I play the hi-hat, I don't play. I would be playing. I kind of feel, so I started going with the MIDI files. I said, well, let me get the hi-hat to sound like that. And then a lot of times, and then the snare is most going to be consistent, unless you want to get a rim shot like on a hard part. Maybe on a chorus or something like that. And then you play like a fill would be, instead of being something like that, I'd go. So I'd use more of just dynamics. And it sounded a lot more real when I did that, started programming the drums. And I said, well, that would work. So I started doing a lot of MIDI files for some companies, and they said, wow, these really sound like a real drummer now. And and I said, oh yeah, this is gonna be a challenge. So I actually I wrote a drum solo, an entire drum solo out. And the company, I sent it to the company, and they went, holy cow. They go, what electronic drum program are you using to do that? That was really good. And I said, I did this all on a mouse. And they were like, what? They said, that's insane. I said, yeah, but I think of how a drummer would play everything. If he's just sitting there, instead of just going. To do on there and try to get the sound right, even on the groove on the cymbal, It just it'd be like instead of be that. And it's all just different velocity levels and playing on the hi-hat. Like you can instead of doing a 60 notes on a hi-hat. And that sounds cool, but if you went. Now it changes, now it brings out a whole different level of doing just a. However you want to play the drums or parts like that. So I started thinking that would be the way to program the drums on that. Now last week, Jeff came over and he had like a little idea of a reggae tune that he had. And he goes, here, I put the little thing and he put moved over a MIDI file from Stephen Slate drums. Any of you guys familiar with any of the drum programs? You guys got some of those? Like Stephen Slate has got a great, I used to use his programs when it first came out. And back then, I had to use it in Contact, Native Instruments Contact, because they didn't even have their own VST or whatever program to put in to play it. So I used some of their stuff, and now I got turned back onto it, so I was trying to get used to that again. But I use Superior Drummer quite a bit, and that's the one I use a lot to write a lot of things in. So so he gave me their stuff. Jeff gave me his tune, and I started listening to it. Now I was going to play part of that for you. Let me see. Let me load that up. Now, and does anybody use FL Studio, or is a lot of people? You guys? I know that FL. The thing I liked about FL when I first started getting FL was first time I saw it online. I said, well, I want to get something that's just cheap and easy to use and when I first bought it, it was like $40 or something like that. It's like FL3, or it's called Fruity Loops 3. And I'm like, all right, now can I program it? And I was able to program real fast. I said, great, this is what I'm going to use. What I didn't realize was they had the lifetime updates for free when you buy it online. So that means every new version they come out with didn't cost me nothing. And now they're like FL12, and it's got all these time-stretching, vocal stretching. They just came out with a new one where you can take an entire song and the audio and everything like that and slow the whole song down. It does the vocals perfect already. You can speed it up, and even the audio, and you think it's amazing what they can do. You know, it took them years to get there, but they just go, here, take it. No money. I'm like, and so that was kind of nice, but let me load up Jeff's song here. So, and he gave me it was just basically drums, bass, guitar, and a couple of vocals. And I said, all right, and I always try to analyze the drums first. And what he did was like what you want to do is you drag over a MIDI file from the drums and and a lot of that times, the MIDI file is a good starting point. Most people think, well, that's the drum part. They go, no, that's not really the drum part, unless it's done really well. Now, some MIDI files are done pretty well. And then, of course, you could take the same MIDI file, put it in like Superior Drummer, and then switch a drum set, and now the bass drum sounds too loud. Or this is, some things are, so you're always going to have to tweak out little things, here and there. All right, now let me just put that. First thing I started to listen to is the drum part. And it's got the reggae feel to it. The hi-hat seemed like he's opening up the hi-hat maybe a little too much. You want maybe just a straighter groove, just to get a nice thing. Let me see. So I thought, well, that'll probably be the first thing I try to work on that. And then the second thing I always listen to is the bass part. The drummer usually, And a lot of times, programming drum parts, you have to listen to all the music, because that'll determine what you're doing with what you want. Because the bass part might influence what you're going to play, or or how you're going to program. And there's the bass part on there. Try to solo the drum. Let me put it from the beginning again. Now I try to give it. I got a little bit of the hi-hat action still in there. Let's have it more just a regular. Now you hear that cymbal with the cymbal roll in there? You can program cymbal rolls in here too, with your drum programs. A lot of times you, let's see, I think number 37, I said some of the transitions I thought would sound cool if you had to go into the next transition. So I thought, well, I have the Stephen Slate set up here. Having the set right here, I said, well, I'm going to use one of these cymbals, and I think I might have used a ride cymbal because it was a lower. So some of the other cymbals that were on there was like too high when I go. I wanted a little bit more of a lower cymbal, so I think the lower one sounded good. Now when I'm programming the drum, like the cymbal rolls, sometimes I'll see how I split these up down in here, kind of vary them around a little bit. And I think these are all done in there might be like 32nd notes or 16th notes are on there. Let's see, 32nd notes or something. I tried out to see what would sound fast and sounded good on there. But I mixed these up. That way it sounds more like a straight roll. Sometimes if you just make it a straight line velocity-wise, it'll sound really static and it'll start to sound fake. So I started taking the velocities and mixed them up and down, and it starts to sound like, wow, now it sounds like a real cymbal. I try to make it sound as real as you can, and it only takes maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes to do that, or 5 minutes to do it, and then you're like, I'm done. I can stick a cymbal roll wherever I want, and the thing is you can swap out any cymbal you want or whatever. So I got that on there. So let me see. So that's what the basic part on the cymbal roll on there. If I go back to the beginning. Now, I had shortened the intro on there because he had the intro as like a whole bar. And I'm thinking, well, maybe you should just go straight into the groove. So I just did like a little fast drum intro and stick it in there. Now, this is the drum part right here. This is the MIDI file for the drums. So, let me see if I can. You got the hi-hats right here. And the hi-hats, that's the thing I had to learn on the Stephen Slate, where they're sticking up different ones. So, and I noticed when he dropped the MIDI file in, I would have different hi-hats, and they were like the same hi-hat, but they had them on different keys, and it wasn't normal like a Superior Drummer, so you couldn't drop this file, and it wouldn't work the same way. It was like whoa, it's kind of weird. But he had worked on this, so I had to kind of learn where all the different notes are. And FL Studio, which is kind of cool, you just like, if you want to, it is like let's see, left click on the MIDI. I can go up and down and hear where every drum is at, and just pick out where I want to put there's a rim shot where I want to put the rim shots, and where I want to put the bass drums and all that. So let me see, I put that. So that would be like the first loop that I try to make a simple thing with. Now, a lot of times when I'm doing like a reggae beat, like if I was doing a reggae beat on the drums, somebody says, well, play a reggae beat on the drums. That's kind of a basic, just like a reggae beat, something like that. You would think something like that. But now if I started thinking, well, if I want to add maybe some percussion, because reggae usually has like more things added than just drums. Like if you see, I've seen some reggae bands and they'll have a percussionist over here, and they'll have some of the other guys are playing percussion, stuff like that. So then I'll maybe go like. So just anything like crazy like that in there, because I'm thinking now I could add, if I leave space in there, I could start adding other little percussions to try to get that group of the feel. You want to get that come out of a shuffle feel. So I said, well, when I went in here, I don't know if you've anybody heard of Stylus RMX. It's a percussion program, but you could do it pretty much with any percussion program. I tried to add I figured, well, let me see if I can add a little shuffle feel behind what the drummer's playing. So let me see if I can. There it is. That's the percussion part that I figured I tried to add with the drums. So it's just like a little kind of a shuffle thing feel with that, going behind the drums. So I started trying to figure out how to I could layer the drums. So now the drummer doesn't have to keep that all that on the hi-hat. He can be a little more sparse. Just keep it nice and simple like that, and you got a little. And I always try to think of if you're going to work percussion in with drums when you're programming, then you have to simplify more parts so everything works together and it sounds really nice. Almost sounds like the drummer could even do it, maybe be pulling that off on that by himself. So I had that. And then I said, well, there's still, I want to get that more of a so I found another sound on Stylus RMX and add this. And I this is a processed drum part. And I just kind of stuck that like in the background with the other percussion part like that, kind of works together. And then you add the drums in with that. Now you're setting up a nice kind of a groove already. So I said, now I figured now I can start working on, and the big thing with the reggae too is a lot of it is the upbeats. You'd have the guitars always going chick, 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 and then an organ is another one. They're the two big ones, and they're between the drums and that sets up the whole feel of the song. So I said, well, let me see if I can have an organ sound. I wanted, well, first let's see if I took his guitar. I tried to put that in there with that. Let me see. And I tried to shorten up his guitar parts. And then I put an organ in. So I put those two together. Then his bass part that he had on there it sounded really nice, except I started listening to it and somebody started going like that, and I started, well, traditional reggae, you don't have too much jazzy stuff in there, so there's a lot more space. That way everything kind of breathes, and it sounds more, it sounds really nice when all of a sudden you hear like out of nowhere, you know, because you have all these different parts going on, and the bass player just like doo-doo, 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 doo-doo. So it had a lot more room to breathe. So I had to redo it. I redid the bass parts, but I did it with Trillion, and I stuck with the same part that he had. This like his main focus of what he wanted to do. I got his vocal. I heard that. Now it's with the vocal. Now with the main melody line, and then it sounds. I was like, wow, this is starting to sound really cool. I was kind of digging the line he's doing and everything on there. And he had the background vocal. She kind of sings along with her. And there's one part where Jeff went up with the vocal, so I kind of changed the vocal part. I just added like one part where at the end where I had her sing higher. So I just sampled her like you could just do a short sample of her like her last note and just raise it up. So. Let me see with both of them vocal parts going on. I made her go up right there. And change the bass part here. Come and never thirst again. Whoever believes in me, as the scriptures say, streams of living water will flow from within. I said, well, that sounds really cool, and I would think how I could fatten up the vocal part. So I started it and figured, well, maybe I could add some strings on just where the singing is. So I tried to put a string part in there just when they're doing the choruses, and I ended up sticking and it just like all of a sudden it just sounded like there's more vocals or something because you're just adding chords, but the strings added helped. I think added. I like that because it made a bigger impression on the chorus. And then when it comes down for the vocals, all of a sudden it was like the whole band dropped out. Now it's just back to the bass and drums, just for bass and drums, and just get a little bit of that thing. So I thought it made it more of a point when you're going to the verses and going to the chorus. So let me see. Let's see, and then the only other thing I think I added in there might have been like a little extra percussion at the end. And then he does this vocal answering thing at the end, too. Let me see if I can get to that part. Yeah, it's right here. Oh, wait a minute. Okay, let me turn that off. Good, there it is. He sings and then she answers them. So I kept the strings going through that. Last one he says, when Jeff's singing the first two words, I said when I put strings just below that just to fatten up the vocal, but I thought it still needs some bells, just like bells on the top to bring in the new part when he's singing in that. So I tried to add it like, that's it. It's just kind of just to fatten everything up, and then the bells I thought added a little bit more on that one section like that. So that's what I did on this. That's what I just did. I kind of did that in one day. So I put all that, did all that stuff, and I kind of did put all the parts together. But it took a while to get all that stuff. Like if you look at the MIDI files on here, like the guitar part, you see how I do it with guitar. See these guitars right here? I just kind of chopped a lot of those parts up just to shorten it up so all the parts would be chick, chick, chick. And then I wanted to see what the timing was on between the guitar and the organ to see if those two would stay together. Looking on those parts. All right, right on the money almost. And then see how that works with the percussion.
Man never thirst again. Whoever believes in me.
So that's basically all the stuff I did on his tune, like going like that. So now I want to. Yeah, there's different parts I did on there to try to see what the drums would play, and I tried to like when you're doing just like singing like on the verses or singing in the verses. I try to keep it a little bit simple. More like let's see this. Yeah, I kept it nice and simple. So most of the focal point would just be on the vocals, because I'm thinking, well, this is not a drum feature or anything. So you just want to keep the nice groove going. And I kept the drum part kind of simple because I figured, well, I'm going to add percussion on top of that. So that's, let's see, that's part 28. If I, on the patterns, I'll just kind of loop that one section right there and just play them all together.
Anyone who's thirsty, come to me and drink. Come and never thirst again.
Now I could just listen to the drums or whatever and just loop that one part section over. I'll try it with just the percussion and the drums. And I'll listen what it sounds like with the vocal too.
And anyone who's thirsty, come to me and drink. Come and never thirst again.
So I kept the fill, the drum fill, just to the end, where he's not singing or anything like that. And I let the feature be a little bit more on the bass part, since the bass part's kind of moving around on there.
And anyone who's thirsty, come to me and drink. Come and never thirst again.
That's 37.
And anyone who's thirsty, come to me and drink. Come and never thirst again.
The bass player follow the drums. Well, he did that. That's why I made the bass player follow the drummer on that.
Come to me and drink. Come and never thirst again. And anyone who's thirsty, come to.
So and there's just the drum part on there. What I did was, let's see, you still got to see it. Mainly, it's a lot of the velocities are kind of up there, except for the hi-hat, because that has most of the dynamics. Like the rim shots, you want to keep those kind of loud, because they're going to have to cut through a little bit. And the bass drum always want to be consistent playing on through those. But so that's a lot of that, what I did on those. And the fills, let me see if I had one. So a lot of times I just keep messing. If I loop this over, I'll keep it just like looping that. And see which I like to do. I'll bring the other one back in if I want to do the other. That guys, it gives it more of a real feel than a just all one velocity level. So that's a lot of the tricks I use on just for doing fills and things like that. And for like a lot of the beats, like here's what, that's the first beat I came up with was this one. Actually, I think it might have been 28 because it was kind of simple. I figured it might have been 28, that's the one. Just like, okay, that's a good one right there, and then just started, at that time opened the hi-hat, started adding a little more clicks at the rim shot. So that's another one I made, and that's a different one. It's almost similar right there. I might have kept the beginning of that and started messing with a few of these in here. Now that, what I did the whack on the snare drum. But anyway, actually I wanted to go to a basic beat, just like if you were just going to drag a groove into a thing come out of nowhere and you say, okay, I just want to start with a beat. And what I would do, and let's see. So now you got Superior Drummer over here, and you got the grooves. You got the mixer right there, and the mixer, and the grooves, and you got the Groove Monkey. And I just went in here and I said, okay, I'm going to try a rock one. I see rock E1. I said 8th note rock. I just clicked on that, and I just make a basic A, and I drag that into here, and I get the. So that's the first beat you just comes out with like that, and it's like, oh, it's not too bad. Hi-hat sounds too much, like he's just hitting all the time the same, kind of like that. So what I would do, like the first thing, like an FL, I said, I want to try to select all these hi-hats. These are all the hi-hat beats right in there. And I don't know, and Ableton and all these, I imagine they got a way you can select and maybe just like grab all the ones like that. Now when I select these, they're all red. So now here I can go in here and say, okay, now I want different velocity levels on here. And usually I'm thinking, how would I play the hi-hat? I'd be like, either that, or sometimes I go, and I would emphasize when the snare hits. So a lot of times I try different both ways to see what sounds best. So but most of the time, all the 8 notes in here would be soft. So I got, that's what I would try to get on the. I see the big difference on that. See how that sounds like without it. See, that first one sounds pretty good. Now what I could do, quick, is just, let me see. I'll select all the hi-hats here. Wait a minute. I'll just see, edit. I'll just cut all those. I'll select these, copy those, and just start pasting that back over here. Paste that. Now I got the whole drum beat with the hi-hat ready to go. Now the second thing I would listen to, I hear the bass drum. It's like dun 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 dun. I was like, I think the drummer would play, go dun 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 dun. The second beat might be a little not as loud, because that's just the way that he would normally kind of play when he's playing it. So I just click on the bass drum here. Here got velocity. Maybe I'll try to bring that down a little bit, see what that sounds like. Maybe a little bit more. That sounds better. Yeah, so okay, now that one, I would keep that one. Now this, I could just left click on that, and then I can right click on all these and just replace them with that softer one. Say at the last part, maybe open up the hi-hat. Let's see. That sounds a little better. All right, now the bass drum too, this is this other bass drum coming in here. Dun, dun, that's too loud. Most of the drummers would play when they're playing it. Dun, 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 dun. They emphasize on the beat rather than right before the beat. So I would bring that down. That's how I was a little more balanced in there. Now say you wanted to have a part that was going to follow a bass guitar part. The bass is going to go dun, 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 dun. He's playing a part like that. Well, then you could easily just go in here and say, okay, here's the bass drum parts right here. Dun, 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 right after the snare drum. So it'll be like this. See there. See. Now you got the dun, 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 dun. I just switched that around. I just moved the bass drum parts like that. So if say I wanted something like that, then I could just copy these. Say that's the way the bass drum part is. I'll cut this. Let's see. Just copy that first part and just start pasting that. Copy that and put this over here. Paste that. Just keep pasting it over here, whatever you want. 4 times. So now you got the bass. Now you got the basic drum part for one loop. Now a lot of times sometimes I'd even quantize this first, just make sure, because sometimes when you put in another loop from another program, if it's not quantized, you're gonna notice they're not together. Because sometimes they have a lot of the loops you put together, they're already quantized, so everything's right on the money. So even though the feel on this sounds kind of good by itself, you gotta think of what it's gonna sound like with all the other stuff, with the loops. So I'd usually quantize that. I think I did this on the 3rd track here, let me see. No, maybe it was the 1st track. All right, yeah, but I think the highest. All right, let me see. 4th when I did it. Yeah, it sounds good. All right, and I think I put the bass part over here. So you wanted a bass part that was kind of following the bass drum. You just copy that, put it on 4. Now you just go right. Now you're setting up for a nice verse of your song, whatever you want. And a lot of times, if you ever work with Trillion, sometimes I like samples that you can offset the playing. Like when I first turned on Trillion, and I'll add a bass part. I notice the bass player sounded a little bit behind, but it's got a sample start on Trillion. If you open that up, and you can actually go to here's Trillion, the bass module. And you go in here, you just open it up, and here's the edit button. You have your track here, and then you have a sample start. It's right here, just right here. It says it's set at about 10. If it's set at 0, it sounded like it's a little bit behind, but it's set it at 10. It's tightened everything up a lot more. Now, bass player sounds he's right on what the drummer's playing, right? Real tight. Now, say you wanted to add a tom. You say, okay, I want to add something really cool to it. All right, you find out where the tom's at, like here, or no, put it so yeah. A lot of times I'll take I'll program if I'm doing a drum part, and I'll take it and I'll take the right hand instead of doing it on the hi-hat, I'll try it on the floor tom. So a lot of times I used to do that. I used to even tell my students to do that. I said it just gives it a whole different feeling. Instead of just doing the drum part, like going. I go. But I said, notice all I'm doing is on the floor toms like this. A lot of times they have to do it velocity. If you don't want to go. now it doesn't sound good anymore, but then when you bring out and do something loud, it sounds really cool. This is a simple beat like that. That's what I tell a lot, and that's the other thing is ghost notes when you're playing on the drum beats. So like you're doing a regular beat. I'm only playing maybe that. So I program the drum parts like in between, like, now you're doing that with a hi-hat. So I emphasize, I stuck at the 2 and 4, I'm gonna hit loud. I hit those sounds. Now when I get my students and they try to play a beat like that, they'll be like, they're playing everything just like one all volume, but as soon as they start going, gives it all a lot of feel. That's like, so I tell them like a lot of the ghost notes, and it's the same to do with fills. I keep all the most of the beats down here. So that's a lot of times I do that with all the beats and two like that, in between the cymbals, same way. Instead of everything. Doesn't sound right. So a lot of times it's just doing a different feel, even with the bass drum. It's like whatever you want to do. I always try to emphasize not play all the notes the same volume. Like that, or even fills, even do like a triplet fill. A lot of drummers use that when they're doing fills on there, like just the right, left, bass. But you put them on different drums. Switch them to different drums. I'll do like that. Like that. Or I used to fake when I was younger. If I didn't have a double bass pedal. So I said the way he was cheating was I used to use the floor tom. Like that, and people will be like, "Whoa, that sounds like you got double bass." And say, "Yeah, we just." I try to do that with my students too, to try to show them, and just like that. So a lot of us are just programming the drums how a drummer would play on that part, and even on doing accents on the drums or whatever. Let me see. Let me put one of my earplugs in so I can hear better what I'm doing. Now I got to put earplugs in, otherwise I'm getting old, so every time I go home, my ears are ringing forever. So I always put one in there. Like. that was just basically. Now I'll do that just kind of to come up with ideas for even for fills. Like if I'm playing a beat like a. Now I'll try to see something that kind of feels weird like. Now it does this. Now I'm just rolling down the drums. Or I'll try to use it on the hi-hat. But notice that when I play it. No, so I use that. I'll try that when I'm playing, writing the different parts on the MIDI files and all that. And you can do that with pretty much with any of the MIDI files. They have different. Some of the MIDI files are really nice and they're good to work with. But a lot of drummers, what they'll do is they'll put the file in there and say, okay, that's going to be the drum beat. And then a lot of times what you need to do is adjust the hi-hats, maybe the bass drums, and some of the fills, and then just copy those over, and then make about like 6 of them, and then change some of this and change that on each one. Then when you put them all together, it sounds like, oh, okay. Sounds like a real drummer's playing, because everything's not just the same, you know. But of course, it all depends on the song. Maybe you just want a straight beat, you know. But a lot of times it's just adjust the velocities on the hi-hats and the bass drums and the things like that for the fills. And that's pretty much it. That's what I do.